are these people?
Let's roll.
All right, so Biden tweeted this out yesterday. In keeping with my campaign promise, my administration is announcing a plan to give working and middle-class families breathing room as they prepare to resume federal student loan payments in January 2023. I have more details this afternoon. So if you scroll down, Reef, actually, hold on, let me, there we go. So regarding student loan reduction, wouldn't necessarily call it forgiveness. So you will receive up to $20,000 if you went to college on a Pell Grant. That's maybe in addition to, wait, so $20,000 if you went to college on a Pell Grant.
Right. 10 if you didn't.
10,000 if you didn't receive a Pell Grant. Forgiveness only applies to those earning less than $125,000. Student loan pause extended one more final time through the end of the year. So basically, for most people, you will receive up to $10,000 of student.
Almost no one gets Pell Grants. It's like a very low percentage.
Well,
they tested the shit out of this thing.
Yeah.
Like, not only is it based on income, but like Pell Grants are like a pretty selective thing.
It's basically for low income students. So
Yeah.
I feel like
my parents made too much to get them.
Well, the idea of it is especially for students of color
Mm-hmm.
that more often than not get these grants. So this is Biden's way, I think, of kind of alluding to, I think, especially for Black students.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll give you a little extra bit because many times I don't know necessarily the numbers, but a decent number of Black students, I received Pell Grants in college. So, but I think that's just kind of like a subtle way of kind of saying to Black students, oh, hey, we got you. So,
Right.
So that's the deal with that. But basically, for most people, if you make under 125,000, you'll get up to 10,000 in forgiveness towards your loans.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and over the past week, there have been opinions regarding this work. Okay.
Other way.
Got it.
He extended the moratorium, right? Like it's
through the end of the year.
For the end of the year.
Yeah. So
till January.
Yeah. So we gotta start paying back our loans in the new year.
Nice. Okay.
So
just in time.
Well, past midterms, and
so then they could blame it on Republicans.
Yeah, basically.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So pulled this article for Common Dreams. Jake Johnson wrote this. Again, this was written on Tuesday. Anger mounts over Biden's reported plan to means test student debt relief. Should go to the next slide. President Joe Biden is reportedly on the verge of announcing his plan to cancel $10,000 in federal student loan debt after months of delays. But not every borrower will be eligible for relief, and progressives are warning that the administration's commitment to mean testing could leave millions of vulnerable people behind. As soon as yesterday, Biden is expected to make public his intention to unilaterally wipe $10,000 off the balances of undergraduate student loan borrowers with annual incomes of less than $125,000. The president is also poised to extend the student loan repayment freeze for several more months, according to NBC News, which we now know is to the end of the year. So just a reminder to folks what Biden proposed when he was campaigning. It was like at the beginning of lockdowns and everything. He said that every American should have a minimum of 10,000 of student loan debt forgiven, which is very different now, saying, you know, if you make under $125,000. So just want to remind you guys that this is what Biden said.
Yeah.
Anyway, Groups representing borrowers cast the emerging details of Biden's plan as a betrayal. Melissa Bryan, executive director of We the 45 Million, in a statement said Tuesday that the rumor of 125,000 means tests is an outrageous violation of President Biden's March 2020 campaign promise of a minimum of 10,000 cancellation for all borrowers. President Biden must refuse all pressure from unserious, generational wealthy economists who have never lifted one finger to fight for free higher education and instead see themselves as allies of the banks. Bryan said in a thinly veiled reference to former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, a multimillionaire who has vocally attacked the idea of student debt forgiveness. Every borrower was already means tested. They didn't have the means to pay for college, Bryan continued. Borrowers trust President Biden to do the right thing and tell the pro-means testers to take their concerns far away from him. The predominant concern among proponents of means testing isn't that people with high incomes will be denied student debt relief, is that people eligible and desperate for relief will get lost in the bureaucratic maze that income-based restrictions inevitably create.
Yeah.
As American Post prospects David Dagan put it recently, all borrowers seeking debt relief under a means-tested cancellation program will have to navigate the often punishing bureaucracy of confirming their earnings level. It means a massive headache for millions to cut out a minuscule proportion of borrowers, Dagan wrote. And if the history of means testing in America is any guide, bureaucratic snarls will prevent vulnerable populations from receiving relief to which they are entitled. Bryan voiced a similar concern Tuesday, saying, the hoops of means testing means that millions and millions of borrowers won't get help.
Yep.
A new analysis released Tuesday by the Penn Wharton budget model shows that the majority of benefits of canceling $10,000 in student debt for borrowers who earn less than $125 a year would go to the bottom 60% of earners. Mark Hulsman, Policy and Advocate Director at the Hope Center for College, Community and Justice, stressed the analysis makes clear that the majority of relief would go towards the bottom 60% of earners, even if there was no income cap. That's a lot of potential administrative burden for a very similar result, Hulsman added. So he actually, so Mark Hulsman tweeted out this chart. So he says here, just so to note, the majority of relief would go to the bottom 60% of earners, even though there was no income cap. That's a lot of potential administrative burden for a very similar result. Oh, you got it. You're good. So Christopher Ingram put it this way. Another way to phrase this would be the majority of relief going towards borrowers in the bottom 60% of earners. So if you scroll down the chart, so if you basically look at the column, the rows actually in the bottom, second, middle, and fourth quintiles, and I said last night I was going to do the math. I did not do the math, but I kind of did it.
Aren't you a teacher?
I'm a pre-K teacher. I don't teach percentages like that.
Okay.
But basically, if you add it together within each column, bottom, second, middle, fourth quintiles, the totals are around the same, regardless if you forgive 10, 50K, with an income cap or without. So basically, the idea in the chart is basically saying there's no point of means testing this when if you just gave these amounts universally, the result will basically be about the same.
The same, yeah.
So that's basically the idea of this chart. Any comments so far before I continue?
No, I think I finally figured out this. Like, this took me a minute to figure out this chart the other day, and I think you finally explained it. Or I'm like, okay, I get it, right? Or
So
it's like
with like incoming trades, it's like going to cover itself.
Essentially. Go ahead.
No, crap. Repeat what you said. I couldn't hear you.
So essentially, it's basically the interest rates are just going to cover itself.
No, what it's basically saying, like, the bottom 60% will get like the totals of the bottom 60% who will benefit regardless if it's 10K or 50K,
right?
You know, with or without income caps, the total will basically be about the same.
The same,
So the
like
argument,
you're saying, Right. The means testing argument that it's helping and we needed to do it is bullshit. Because if you did just this much percentage across the board without means testing it, it wouldn't make any difference. Like it wouldn't, like it would still be the same people pretty much.
Right.
Or if they didn't literally fucking chump change, like if maybe if it was like 100,000, then maybe we've seen some kind of sort of substantial difference.
Right.
But no, they want to toss you a bone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like what angers me the most about this is the main reactions from like the majority of liberals here. Thank you, President Biden, King Biden. Thank you so much for this penny. Thank you.
I've seen some of that, but I haven't. Not a whole lot. Like I feel like a lot of people are like, either no one should be getting this or this is not good enough. That's what I've been seeing mostly online. I haven't seen a lot of people besides some of the progressives, you know, basically saying that this is calling this a win.
That's why I said, it's a liberals from my age, the squad is celebrating this as if it's like you could even see like Nina Turner. She's like, okay, now cancel medical debt next, and it's like we're not even done with this. We didn't even.
We're killing IOUs and not just making it entirely covered under public education. Like, you know, both of those things. It's like, end medical debt. No, just end having to pay for medical anything. Then no one will have the debt. Right. Anyway, like I digress, you know, but, yeah, anyway, okay. So
actually, Ed Heller is saying that my mic is low, which is weird.
This is not even like a problem in the majority of other countries. It's either
you can
substantially cheaper to go to university or it's free.
Bottom left in Zoom, Colin, you can increase your, if you open up audio settings, right? You pull the drop up on mute and then you can increase input volume if you want.
Okay. I think partially I just have to speak into the mic. That's probably the other thing.
That would also probably help, or increase gain so that you don't have to like run away from it, you know? But anyway.
Where are you settings for that?
Bottom left where it says mute, there's a arrow. And then audio settings.
Yeah.
Okay. You know. Yeah. Anyway, so you got some more, right?
Yeah, I got some more. The plan Biden's expected to announce Wednesday is a far cry from the ambitious student loan debt cancellation that prominent Democratic lawmakers and advocacy organizations have been demanding from the president for more than a year. Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, among many other lawmakers, have called for at least $50,000 in student debt forgiveness per borrower, a proposal that will completely clear the student debt balances of 80% of federal borrowers, whereas I think they said with just the 10-ish, I think they're saying around 30%.
Right.
So in the chat, correct me on that. Okay. By contrast, canceling $10,000 in student loan debt per would amount to full forgiveness for just about a third of borrowers.
Makes sense.
Let me go back. Yeah. President Biden should cancel student debt to help narrow the racial wealth gap among borrowers, provide relief to the 40% of borrowers who never got to finish their degree, and give working families a chance to buy their first home or save for retirement. Warren tweeted Tuesday. It's the right thing. For months, Biden and the White House officials have been deliberating over the right course of action to address a crisis affecting tens of millions of people across the U.S. The average federal student loan balance is nearly $38,000, according to the Education Data Initiative, and Americans collectively hold close to $2 trillion in student debt.
Yep.
The Washington Post reported Tuesday that administration officials have weighed whether canceling student debt could alienate voters who have already paid theirs off, and polling results have been mixed. Centrist Democrats have begun pushing back strongly, the Post added. Summers and Jason Furman, two prominent Democratic economists who served in prior administrations, has stepped up their case against broad loan forgiveness, arguing it would exacerbate inflation by increasing overall spending. These claims have been strongly contested. The Roosevelt Institute, a left-leaning think tank, argued that canceling student debt would increase wealth, not inflation, the Post noted. The Roosevelt Institute paper found that inflation resulting from debt cancellation would be negligible and that ending the payment moratorium would more than outweigh the effect. Requiring borrowers to resume payments would reduce inflation by slowing consumer spending.
Yep.
On top of the potential economic benefits of broad-based student debt cancellation and the relief it would provide to countless hurting households, proponents and observers have also pointed to the political upside for Biden and the Democratic Party heading into the pivotal November midterms. At this point, people want something, and they need something big, like a big policy that they could look at and say, okay, he's trying to do something for us. And debt relief would definitely be that. Roger Rees, a sociology professor at the University of Texas at Austin, told Inside Higher Ed. Inaction, meanwhile, could be politically disastrous for Democrats. A survey released last year found that 40% of registered Black voters are willing to stay home unless student loan debt is canceled. So just another reminder of what Biden promised, when he was campaigning. So if you look at the spot where that red dot is, he promised to forgive all undergraduate tuition-related federal student debt from 2- and 4-year public colleges and universities and private HBCUs and MSIs for debt holders earning up to $125,000. Now, remember back then just being like, why just HBCUs?
Right.
Because not all Black students go to HBCUs, But so that was the argument that I made back then, which I think, as Greg, you were kind of saying before, I think this is the Pell Grant comes in, because from that you get upwards of 20 K relieved. And a lot of students of color definitely benefit from Pell Grants. So I think that's their way of kind of saying, this is to kind of include this idea within the Pell Grant initiative that they did through
they get dessert with their dinner. That's it.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is.
Okay, zoom out, please.
Yep. Sorry. Whoop.
You're good. Student debt relief is also massively popular with young voters, another key component of the Democratic base. But Derek Johnson, president of the AANCP, warned the president Tuesday that $10,000 alone is meager, to say the least. It won't address the magnitude of the problem, he told the Post.
Mm.
So that's the article. Overall thoughts.
You notice how they're congratulating him like a little kid? It's like,
what do you mean?
Hey, Biden,
gold star.
You did something. Congrats.
Right. They want to put up his picture on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing with this. I said this last night. If you heard me say this last night, I'm sorry. You'll get to hear it again. But one thing I always say is, is the ask big enough? In this, now I will preface by saying, to all the people who have paid off their debt, who are now bitching, about people getting relieved and basically being like, well, why I should get something because I paid off my debt, and what about me, and all this kind of stuff. You can take a seat. Yes, I understand for many of you it's hard, that paying debt is hard, and it's not necessarily an easy thing, but you did it. That's not to say that everyone else is going to have, an easy or harder time to pay off their debt.
No one does
especially
that with healthcare. No one goes hey, my granny died because we couldn't afford her healthcare, so you shouldn't get healthcare. Like that.
Right.
What?
It's just really a non-logical argument. The idea of you're going to deny people progress because you didn't benefit from the progress that was being made yourself. you know, so
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, shut up, take a seat. That being said, though, what I can critique, or I think we all can critique, is this considered progress? Now,
Right.
Biden did something. Some people are saying, oh, this is the best that he can do. No, it wasn't the best that he can do, you know, because as I said last night, the idea of just giving money, and I've seen these arguments online, which I think are definitely valid. The idea that interest, especially once student loans kick back in January, are going to resume as normal. The idea that colleges are essentially getting away with, you know, charging high tuition in order for college to make it so you have to take out a loan, especially if you're working class, if you want to go to college. It's not necessarily being addressed. So there are a lot of issues kind of surrounding higher education that I think are worthwhile discussion and really a lot more worth having debates on than this, which I will say is something. The idea would be, in my opinion, yeah, cancel student debt, but also deal with these student loan companies that charge exorbitant interest that make it so like an 18-year-old has to basically sign their life away to pay interest that compounds the longer that they have the loan, to the point where they never pay off for the loan in certain cases. The idea that colleges are charging exorbitant amounts of tuition, you know, in light of that. And then the idea of like, we don't offer free college, you know, which, remember, Biden and the Democrats kind of kicked off the Build Back Better bill. These are
Right.
issues that I think are worthwhile having that are not being discussed. And instead, you know, we're kind of arguing over like, do people deserve any kind of relief? You know, again, I think, to me, this just seems like this is just kind of like the bone that Biden literally threw at us to just kind of fight among ourselves, you
Right.
know, over this. Meanwhile, the institutions that kind of created this problem are still very much left intact.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, to me, this was, you know, kicking the can down the road for a while. So, you know.
And you could see, like, they literally passed the $3 billion to Ukraine, like the same exact day. So I think that like kind of blows wide open the hypocrisy of like, oh, like it's gonna cost like inflation, or like it's gonna cost too much.
Yeah.
You can clearly see that the U.S. government is way more capable than what they want to lead you to believe.
Of course.
Right.
Okay. Nice. I was gonna say, did you see the meme where it's like it's the trolley problem, where it's like you can pull the lever to save 4 people on the trolley.
Yeah.
But then it would be unfair to all the people who died on the trolley before and the previous in the track.
Like, there's a game called Trolley Problem. It's very good.
I want to play that.
Yeah.
It sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to make this note, because I said this yesterday. There was a memo that Biden, you know, instructed the Department of Ed to look into, to see if you can unilaterally just cancel all student loan debt across the board. That memo has not been released. You know, why isn't anyone talking about this memo?
Right.
That's the other thing. That leads me to believe that, you know, they could, but they didn't want to piss off the lobbyists, you know, Sally Mae, Navient, whoever your student loan lender is. You know, they didn't want to piss them off and cancel student debt and essentially lose the money that they're getting, you know, off our backs. So, you know, so
any campaign promise, a single one, anything.
I mean, I haven't seen it. If so, it's not been completely right. Like, it's not exactly what he said it was going to be. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
No, I mean, I think this is the only thing that like even comes relatively close to what he said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to Biden's
I can't think of anything
I
else.
don't even want
There's
to
nothing
fucking
else.
finish
Yeah.
that sentence.
right. I
Like,
mean,
This is
to
the bare
Biden's-
minimum.
yeah.
I
mean,
don't respect the bare minimum being done. Like,
well, I can't even call it the bare minimum.
it's
because
not even that.
he means testing
I
the
feel like
shit
we
out of it.
lost more in the past 2 years than we actually gained from whatever minuscule benefit this brings.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Look,
mean,
It doesn't even outweigh it.
Look, I will say this, like, this will assume now it's just a question for me because, as I said, I did get I was a Pell Grant recipient in college, I think, if I remember.
yeah.
You know, so I'm wondering, do I get the 20 or the 10?
I remember
if-
Lucy said the other day when we did the stream a interesting point about how this might be used. This is really almost used to end the like tuition
Right.
strike.
Right. Well, yeah, because, well, I think honestly, like, it kind of dissipated anyway in
Yeah.
certain ways, because again, we're kind of undisciplined in a lot of areas, and that will kind of lead into my rant in the next segment. But for me personally, like, this will benefit me quite a bit because just to be very transparent, I have, I'll say, about 17,000 left
Right.
on my loans right now. So it could very well be like either I'll get most of it taken care of or all of it,
Yeah.
So for me, but also kind of preface for the fact that I've been paying consistently my student loans since when I graduated grad school, since 2014.
Yeah.
And like my highest at that point was 75. Now, granted, like the fact that I could say like that's relatively cheap, by student loan standards, I think is horrible to say. But, but I just feel like other countries have been able to figure out how they're able to have people who want to get higher education to go at a nominal cost, if not nothing. And yet here it's the idea of like, especially like if you want to go into like public service, like I am, like the fact that you don't have necessarily anything to show for it. Like, I feel bad for doctors right now in a lot of ways because many of them will not qualify for this, and especially right now, like people in public service, like don't necessarily get the gratitude that they deserve. And yet, most of them are being shafted from this because it's mean tested, or it's not even going to make a dent, in paying off. And that will kind of recoup in interest anyway, once student loans kick back in January.
It's really just kicking the can down the road. I mean, this is what just politicians do, right? They just toss issues at each other.
Yeah.
Like whenever it's blue to red every single 2 years, they're just like, okay, now you deal with this. And then that way they can't take any sort of accountability.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're fucked.
I agree.
Basically.
I agree.